Hey, welcome back to Aircraft Adventures. I'm Liam Locke, and we're back in the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 edition. This time version 1.16.2.0. This is Sim Update 4. Lots of new changes added into the Flight Simulator. Today we are going to be flying from beautiful San Juan, Puerto Rico, down to Trinidad and Tobago, specifically the island of Tobago, to A&R Robinson International Airport. Today's flight will be in the Airbus A320neo, the A32NX version of that from Fly-by-Wire, with all of their updates into the aircraft. And coincidentally, it is now a part of the marketplace for free, so if you haven't had an opportunity to fly this particular aircraft, I certainly do recommend it. We're going to go ahead and get things started up here this morning. We'll go through the startup, take a look at our flight plan, and get everything configured to go. So we'll go ahead and hop in the aircraft here. And we'll do our standard safety checks before we start things up. Just make sure the engine is in the normal mode. Engines are turned off. That all looks good. Flight control surfaces, speed brake, and the flaps are in the retracted position. Landing gear is down. Wipers are turned off, so we should be good to go ahead and turn on the batteries. So we'll get battery 1 turned on. And I like, let me just make this easier to see, I like that the batteries have different voltages represented in them now, so a little more realistic, true to life. Get that second battery turned on.
San Juan clearance delivery Spirit 6529er IFR to Crown Point ready to copy.
Spirit 6529er is cleared to Crown Point Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 28 climb and maintain 9,000 feet. Departure frequency is 120.9er squawk 6045.
Spirit 6529er cleared to Crown Point Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 28 climb and maintain 9,000 feet. Departure on 120.9er squawk 6045.
Spirit 6529er read back correct. Contact ground on 121.9er.
So they kind of ruined my surprise. With this Sim Update 4, they have modified some of the phraseology in air traffic control, and I wanted to give it a shot again, not only for the phraseology change, but also to try out something that I recently discovered in the Flight Simulator, where you can select your actual gate for arrival. This has always been a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. When you show up at the airport and you request a gate, I've had issues where the gate selection doesn't exist. I mean, that was at San Francisco, or the gate just doesn't make any sense for the aircraft you're flying or what terminal you're going to. So if I can pre-select my gate, which I've done through the Microsoft Flight Simulator flight planning, then when we arrive in Tobago, I should be able to request guidance to a gate, and it's going to give me the gate that I selected for my arrival. So that's going to be cool, and I'm hoping that that's going to work as expected. And I've got my radio set to the first officer to interact with the radio, so that's one of the frustrating things. As soon as you power on the aircraft, immediately your first officer, files your IFR clearance. Not a big deal, although I wasn't expecting to get runway 28, quite honestly, for takeoff, but that's okay. We'll kind of go with the flow. And now we'll kind of get this out of the way and continue with our startup. So we've got the batteries turned on. First things we want to do is we want to get ground power connected. Now it says that it's available already, but of course it's not connected to the aircraft. You can see it sitting down there, so we're going to go ahead and just go through that exercise. We have the convenient EFB in the Fly-by-Wire A32NX, so we'll activate that. And we won't grab our sim brief information quite yet. First we'll go to ground, get external power connected, and we'll get the jetway connected to the aircraft. Alright, all good. We'll go back up to the overhead console right now. We'll get our cockpit light turned on. We also want to get our navigation lights turned on, so we'll get that taken care of. And we'll go back to the EFB for a moment, and we're going to set up our fuel load, which we can do via the EFB. So we'll go to dispatch and then go to fuel, and we'll take a look at the flight plan. Let me bring that up. Now, I said that I use the Microsoft Flight Simulator's flight planning to control gate assignment, and that's true. So I selected my starting gate and my arrival gate.
San Juan ground, Cessna November 425.
Let's take care of that here.
Pushback.
I don't want to be
Cessna
hearing
November
the
425.
radio.
Pushback request accepted.
We'll just change this here a little bit. We're trying to get our payload situated. We're talking about fuel, and I said that I used the Microsoft Flight Simulator's flight planning because I picked my departure gate and my arrival gate, and it automatically calculates my my IFR flight plan for me. And even if I had used SimBrief and loaded its plan in, what I find in Microsoft's Flight Simulator is as soon as you pick an arrival gate at your destination airport, it completely redoes your flight plan, which is a little frustrating. Right? If I'm going to import my flight plan, that's the flight plan that I want to follow. Just because I change my arrival gate, I don't want Microsoft to reset my flight plan, but currently that's not the case. So I kind of reversed it. I did the flight plan inside of Microsoft Flight Simulator. I took whatever flight plan it gave to me. It looked pretty good. And then I imported that specific plan into SimBrief. And I know this probably doesn't make any sense, but the reason I do that is because I want the fuel load information and the payload information from SimBrief to put into the aircraft. That's information that I don't get from Microsoft's Flight Simulator's flight planning. That I'm going to need to make sure they've got the right amount of fuel on board and so forth. So that's it. Let's jump out here and take a quick look at the flight plan. So here's our flight plan, and the information that we specifically want out of here. We'll take a quick look at our cost index, which is set to 12. Make a note of that. Look at our fuel. We have block fuel of 6,784 kilograms needed for this flight today, so 6.8 metric tons. And then we'll go down and look at the payload. Payload today is 152 passengers at 15.8 metric tons. So this is all the information that we need to collect right now out of the flight plan. And just to look at it, since we're here looking at the flight plan did have us, including inside the simulator, leaving from runway 8, which is why I said it was surprising that they gave us runway 28. Nonetheless, we'll adapt and make modifications here. We'll be flying out the HEMAR-2 star, and we'll come back and talk about this, and then runway 11 into Tobago today. But we've got the key information we need to continue with the setup of our payload. So we'll go back into the aircraft here, back to our EFB. We could just select this and type it in, but if you do it when you're looking at the EFB, the keys are active inside the simulator. So if you hit a particular number and you've got your numbers programmed to do a view or something like that, it's going to shift your view away from this. So the easiest way to take care of that is to go ahead and pop this window out into a second window. And now we can actually work with the keys without impacting the aircraft. So 6784, easy enough. And then we're going to use a refuel time of instant. I'm not going to work with realism for putting fuel in an aircraft, so we'll just say go ahead and modify the fuel, and now we've got the exact fuel that we want in the aircraft. Unfortunately, we can't go to payload yet inside of the EFB in the Airbus, so we'll need to do payload from the actual fuel load option inside the simulator. So you can see already, if we look at fuel 6784, so it's an exact match to what we just programmed in the EFB, so that's good. Now we just need to adjust our payload, which is currently sitting at 9.1, 9.2 metric tons, and we want to get it up to 15.8 is the number we noted from our flight plan. So we'll adjust the slider, and I'm pretty sure I already know it's 51%, which puts that at 15.9. So that's perfect. That's close enough for our purposes. but our center of gravity is a little far forward, right near the maximum, so we're going to adjust this weight, shift a little bit of it back. Alright, that looks a little better. Make note of our new center of gravity at 22.62%. And we'll go ahead and get out of this screen. And we'll go down to our center pedestal. We want to adjust our trimmable horizontal stabilizer. So we'll go over here just a little bit. And 22.62. So this is going to be pretty close for our purposes. 22.62, just below, around 1 up. And then to verify that, we can look up here at the eCam page, but we can't do that right yet because one thing that I didn't do is I haven't turned on the ground power, even though I connected it. So let's get that taken care of. And we probably should have done that before we continued on with that setup, but that's fine. Ground power's turned on right now. The eCam page down below will be initializing. Looks like it's already initialized, so we'll get these displays brightened up here. And now we'll go to flight controls and we'll look at the pitch trim, and we can see it's 0.9 up, so we'll make a note of that as well. We'll need that to put into the flight management system. And we'll continue with our startup of the aircraft now that our payload is situated. So up top here, we want to do an APU fire test. Very good. And we'll go ahead and get the APU fired up. So hit the master switch, wait about 3 seconds, go ahead and hit the start switch. You can then look down here at the eCam page, turn the flight control off so it automatically goes to the APU page, and we can see the APU is starting up. We've got the flap open indicator, which is positive. We need that to be open when the APU is running. We'll give that a second to get started, and we want to track, or so I've read, we can track how long we actually run the APU for, so we can actually use the chronometer on the clock itself. So we'll go ahead and start that up. And while that's all initializing, it's a good opportunity for us to adjust the brightness of the lights in the cockpit. So our integrated rear lighting behind the labels of the controls, we'll get those adjusted. From here we'll spot check the parking brake. So parking brake should be set. Parking brake is currently in the on position. We want to look at the accumulator, and this is something new that has been added into the Airbus A320nx, which is nice. So notice that our accumulator pressure is low, so we don't have proper pressure. Our brakes are currently set. They're not as high as they could be, but we see that brake pressure is there. And we've got the hydraulics synoptics page is now new in the aircraft, so this is great. Nice to see this. It's been a little while waiting on this page to be added. We can see all the systems are off. If we want to adjust this accumulator pressure now before we've started up the engines, we can add turn on the electric pump. You see we have electric input right here to power up the yellow hydraulic system, and that should give us brake pressure. So on the overhead console from here, we've got hydraulics, electric pump. We'll go ahead and turn that on. It's going to power up the yellow system and probably going to power up the green system as well. Go back down and look at this page, and sure enough, look at the accumulator pressure is rising, going back up to green, so it's going to be in the right area. Notice that the brake pressure now in the for the wheel brakes it's higher. It's gone up a little bit, so we know we've got good brake pressure, and we can see both the yellow and the green hydraulic systems are pressurizing. Love seeing new stuff in the Airbus. A lot of good work from the fly-by-wire folks. Take a look at our flaps. So flaps are fully retracted. Handle would agree. Flaps retracted. Ground spoilers retracted. No warning for ground spoilers. So ECAM agrees with control positions. And our probe window heat is set to auto automatically. You really don't have to do anything with that, but we do want to get the APU bleed turned on. We'll just verify that we do have APU bleed pressure. So APU is fully turned on. It is. So back to the overhead console. Here's the probe window heat. It's automatically in the auto position, so you don't need to click it to do anything with it. We need to put the APU bleed on though. And now we can go down. I don't see, interesting that this here has XX for bleed pressure. Let's look at the actual bleed page, and we can see we do have APU is providing bleed pressure. Everything looks to be normal here. And with that step, we're ready to start our flow on the overhead console. So back up top, starting our flow, get our crew supply oxygen situated. No other changes on any of these controls heading up. We will get our inertial reference system turned on, so IR1 to on, or to nav, IR2 to nav, and then IR3 to nav. Look at our lights. No other changes that we need to the lights at this time. Go ahead and get the seatbelt sign turned on, get the no smoking sign situated. Arm our emergency exit lights. Don't need to do anything with the standby compass. No anti-ice today. Cabin pressure, landing elevation is all set to normal. We don't need to make any changes here. Packs are currently on and running. We do have APU bleed turned on. We're not adjusting the temperature in the cockpit or the cabin. Should be comfortable at this point. External power is still on. However, we do have the APU turned on right now, so we can convert off of external power to APU power, but to do that we would have to click this button, and I'll show you that on the synoptics page. If we go back down here and bring up the electrical page, you can see that we're running off of external power still. It's providing power to the aircraft. The APU is under no load right now, but it is operational and ready to provide power, so we want to switch over to it. To do that, we're going to turn off our external power. So there you'll hear the switch over. Go back down and look at this, and now notice that the external power is no longer connected, and power to the aircraft is coming from the APU, and we're drawing 55% load. So that looks good. We could disconnect the ground power now if we wanted to. We'll come back and do that here in a moment. I'm going to continue with our flow up top. No other changes to the electrics page. We will go ahead and turn on our fuel pumps. We'll leave the hydraulic electric pump on for the moment. Do our engine 1 fire test. Engine 2 fire test. We'll do our cargo fire test. And then no other changes up top. And now we'll go ahead and contact our departure ATIS and get our weather information. So departure ATIS for San Juan is 125.8. So we'll manually control that on the radio.
San Juan Airport information, Quebec 1200 Zulu. Flight 113 at 19er. Visibility 10. Sky condition, few clouds at 1,200 feet, few clouds at 4,300 feet, few clouds at 12,400 feet. Temperature 28. Dew point 10. QNH 30.05. Visual runway 28 in use. Landing and departing runway 28. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact you have Quebec. San Juan.
Alright, so we got our information. Winds out of 113 at 19. Now, this has been throwing me off a little bit. I'm pretty sure that their 19 is not 19 knots. believe what they're reporting is actually 19 kilometers an hour, which was throwing me off because I've had some higher wind ratings at like 29. I'm like, 29? It's not 29 knots. Is it seriously that fast? So I need to verify that, but I think this is a KMH rating. And because if I look at actual weather information for San Juan right now, let me just update this. Yeah, I get 10 knots, and 10 knots if we did the math, 10 knots times 1.8, that's going to get us up there to around 19. So I'm pretty sure that this wind reading that we're getting back from the ATIS report is actually KMH, which I don't know if that's something that's changed recently or if I've just never picked up on that's the case. So not 19 knots, definitely 19 km. Winds are actually 10 knots. Anyway, just wanted to point that out. So we've got our ATIS information. Important piece of information beyond the runway, we get confirmation that we've been assigned runway 28. 28 happens to be the active runway, which is expected. We did get our altimeter barometric pressure setting of 3005, so we'll go ahead and make that adjustment both on the EFIS panel here as well as on the standby altimeter. Alright. And then we already have our IFR information, so we're ready to take a look at the flight management guidance system, so we'll enter that. Get a little better position here. Verify our information looks good. AirAct data is current. We'll clear the GPS primary selection. We'll go to init. Our IRS system should already be initialized. San Juan to Tobago. We said our cost index was 12. And our cruise level, according to the flight plan, and I believe this is different in the simulator, and I didn't check that. According to SimBrief, it's got us with a cruise altitude of 37,000 feet, but I think in the Microsoft Flight Simulator, it's probably going to be a little bit higher. Well, we'll go ahead and make a note. If we have to, we can just change that mid-flight. Alright, nothing else to do here. We'll go to our secondary initialization page. Block fuel 6.8 metric tons. And then we'll retrieve our zero fuel weight. Get our initial fuel predictions. All looks good. Take a look at our flight plan. Our flight plan was entered from the flight simulator. As I indicated, it did have 8 initially, so we do need to change our departure runway to 28. And this 28, now the question becomes, with the change in runway, how is that going to impact my departure SID? Because it's probably going to change. I'm going to go out here into Navigraph and just take a look. So we were set up for the HEMR2. And looks like that's got support. Here's HEMR2. That's got support for runway 8 and runway 10. But we're taking off from runway 28. So now I actually need to change this. So let's get this off the screen. Make a quick adjustment here. So runway 28. Take a look at what our options are. We want to head out to Singra or Jet SS1. Let's take a look at the Jet SS1. That'll get us to juice. Yeah, I think that works. So we won't modify our flight plan too much. What's this Singra? No, Jet SS1. No, what's this? What is this Singra one? Yeah, I think the Singra one is probably what we're looking for. So Singra. Yeah, we're gonna do Singra to Juice. I think that's gonna be appropriate for us. We'll get rid of this information. Runway 28 is already selected. We're gonna select Singra to Juice. Perfect. And then from Juice down to Limbo, that sticks with the original flight plan, so that looks good. So we've got an adjustment to our flight plan. We'll spot check what it has for departure. So 28, climbing 281 degrees to 520, and then continuing our climb with an initial altitude of 5,000, but we've already got clearance for 9,000 from air traffic control, so we're not going to pay any attention to that. And then we'll vector back around from takeoff. Singra. Expect vectors to Singra. So we are taking off in the opposite direction, and it says we should be getting air traffic control guidance. So we'll be looking to make probably a right-hand turn, go out over the water, and make our way back for Singra is going to be our plan. That's it. That's what we're going to do. So we'll take this off the screen because I'm going to need the airport chart here in a moment. Go ahead and get that situated. Go back into the simulator. So Singra is what we said. Here's Singra 2. And Singra 2 to the Juice transition to our flight plan. We'll go ahead and insert that. And now we've got some funkiness going on here in our flight plan, it looks like. So this is always fun. I thought they had worked out some of the bugs in the Airbus's flight management guidance system, but it looks like there's still some unusual overlaps taking place, because it looks like I've got remnants of my original flight plan still in there, and I don't like that. So we'll go to plan. Yeah, definitely got some funkiness going on here. Look at that. So 28, yep, user. We need to navigate back around to Singra, to Shaka, to Juice. So that's our SID. And if we walk through this, there is Singra, there is Shaka, and Juice. Now, from Juice, we had these original entries that were put in our flight plan for the Hammer 2 SID. We need to get rid of these, basically. So we're going to just clear them all out. Alright, so now we've got Juice, Limbo, all the way down to the airport. This looks to be correct. So insert this and take a look at this one more time. Alright, so user vectors to Singra, Shaka to Juice, and then on our way down to Limbo. So this all looks fine, and then all the way down to Tobago. So no other changes now to be made to the flight plan. With that, we've got to enter any radio navigational aids. I'm not entering any radio navigational aids for today's departure. And we need to look at our performance page. Transition altitude, 18,000 feet. Thrust reduction at 1510. Engine out, 1510. Flaps takeoff today is going to be flaps 1. And we said the trimmable horizontal stabilizer would be set to up 0.9. Flex temp 49, beautiful weather out there. grab our V1 speed 130, our rotate speed 131, and our V2 will be, oop, I put it in the wrong place, let's try that again. Our rotate 131, and then our V2 is actually 135, there we go. And we're done. We'll go back to flight plan here. We've already got a barometric pressure set, get our flight director turned on. Get our constraints set up on the navigation display. We'll go back to ARC mode here. Put our MCP in managed flight. So we'll get the dashes in the circle. Initial altitude we already cleared for 9,000, so we'll set 9,000. Get the first officer's flight director turned on. Take a look at the anti-skid nose wheel. So here, anti-skid appears on. Thrust levers are set to idle. We've already looked at that. Look at it again. Thrust lever set to idle. Take a look at our transponder. Transponder code 6045. That matches. Our ATC transponder is in the on position. We'll go ahead and turn on altitude reporting. I'm going to change our collection for both above and below. Our current TCAS system is set on standby. We don't need that turned on quite yet. And this is a good time to go ahead and disconnect external power. So back over here to the EFB, to our ground. Say goodbye to external power. Go look at the ECAM conditioning page, make sure the temperature is good in the plane, 24, 24, 24, so that's temperature degrees Celsius, so that's comfortable. And then we will deal with boarding. Boarding hopefully is complete, cargo is loaded, nothing to do there. It will be nice when FS Dream Team gets the GSX completed. I cannot wait for that add-on. You know, I was trying to work with FS to Cruise flight crew Airbus A320. Unfortunately, that add-on I have not had very much success with. It continues to want to crash my sim for some reason, and I know it's that add-on because I get these errors, a pop-up from I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but the pop-up identifies the various applications that are crashing, and one of them is the flight crew A320. So unfortunately we don't have some of that immersion quality. I like it. You get to interact with the first officer and do the checklist, and you get some of the cabin announcements. Just a really cool, nice additional touch. But unfortunately we can't use that, so we're still waiting for some additional add-ons to bring that level of realism. There's a PAX add-on out there. I don't know if that's to the level I want to take it. That looks like they've got a lot of cool stuff in that, but I just haven't decided to take that plunge yet. But I am thinking about it. I'm really holding out for GSX, quite honestly. Alright, so not dealing with cargo or passengers loading. At this point, we're just about ready to do pushback. We could remove the jetway and go ahead and figure out what our pushback direction is going to be. But since we're working with air traffic control, we want to get our taxi guidance, because the taxi guidance they give us is going to affect which way we actually push back out of the gate here. So let's do that. Go ahead and disconnect the gate and bring up ATC, and let's go ahead and get ground and request our taxi.
San Juan ground, Spirit 6529er with Quebec ready to taxi IFR.
Spirit 6529er taxi to Intl short of runway 28 using taxiway November Tree Hotel Niner, Juliet Niner, Juliet 11. Contact tower on 1 tree, 2.05 when ready.
Taxiing hold short runway 28 via taxiway November Tree Hotel Niner, Juliet 11 Spirit 6529er.
Alright, so we've got our taxi information. we need to take a look at Navigraph and figure out what their plan is for us. So we'll hop out to Navigraph. So here we are. They said they want us, you can see we're at Terminal B here. We're going to push out and go to Taxiway N, which is right behind us. So Taxiway N to N3. So N3 is down here. Then to H9. So N3 is either direction. This is good to go. So N3 all the way. Now, wait a minute. What's this here? N3 to H9. This is H6. Of course, the taxiway information is not going to be as expected. Let's see if we can decipher what they wanted us to do here. This information doesn't agree with what the Microsoft Flight Simulator is giving us. Ultimately, we need to make our way down here to runway 28. So we're going to do our own thing. We are going to go N3, H6, N3, H6 to H, down here to H7, and H7 will get on runway 28. Sometimes, you know, that's what you get in the simulator if you're working with Navigraph. Quite honestly, most times it's really accurate. I don't have any issues with it. This seems to be a little off this time. No issue. We will adapt and overcome. We'll go back into the aircraft. We've got our taxi information. We know which direction we're pushing the aircraft back. And pretty much we're going to go straight back into the left, put the nose back to the left. I'm sorry, put the tail back to the left and the nose to the right. So camera's in position. We'll go in here and get our beacon light situated. Give the ground crew a heads up. We're about to push back. And we'll be using FS to Cruise Pushback Express, which unlike the Airbus A320 add-on, actually works and works quite well. Okay. One last spot check. Everything looks to be ready to go. Yep, we got a couple more things to do once we get out. We'll get this conditioning page turned off. Get our engine page here situated. Go back outside and let's get pushback started.
Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead, flight tech.
We are ready for pushback and engine start.
Roger. Release the parking brakes, please.
Parking brakes released.
Pushing back.
Well, there was a problem there for a little bit with the Airbus. Anyways, I was having a problem. I think it was actually with the CRJ using Pushback Express, where I couldn't get the tug to disconnect from the aircraft. That bug has been fixed in the last update to Pushback Express. But since then, I have been using the button interaction with Pushback Express as opposed to the voice commands. I'll probably need to switch back over to the voice commands here at some point. A little better immersion quality talking with the ground crew and getting the aircraft pushed back rather than just clicking the buttons and hearing strange voices emerge out of the simulator.
You are clear behind, and you can start your engines at your discretion.
Now, typically we would be monitoring this via the ECAM page, but I'm going to go ahead and get ignition start turned on. Engine 2 start. Stop pushback.
Pushback complete. Set parking brakes, please.
Parking brake set.
Roger. Okay, the tow bar is disconnected and the equipment is clear. We will see you on the right-hand side with the pin.
Thanks, and you can disconnect and go to hand signals.
Thanks. Have a good flight. See you later.
Alright, we've got startup on engine 2, just about stabilized. Engine says it's available. Looks good. Engine 1 start. Alright, sounds like we've just switched over to the engine generators. Take a look at our electrics page here. And we are running off both generators for the engines. APU is no longer in use for power. And parameters are stabilized, so good engine 1 startup. Go up top and turn our APU bleed off. And let's look at that page. So our bleed page, APU is no longer providing bleed. It should have been going from the engines. I should have checked that before I turned it off. These temperatures seem to be a bit off. Looks like they're just getting adjusted right now. Looks like they're warming up. Take a look at our conditioning page. No change in temperature in the cockpit of the cabin. And we'll turn off the APU. Turn the bleed page off. Continue with our pre-taxi checklist. Let's do a flight control check. So left aileron, right aileron is good. Elevator down, elevator up. Rudder left and right. Pitch trim still looks good at 0.9 up. Get our flap situated, so flap 1 for takeoff. Get our spoilers armed for rejected takeoff. And get our auto brake set for max. Just about set. No anti-ice today. We do want to get the weather radar situated. We don't need the weather radar to be turned on at the moment, but we'll get the predictive wind shear turned on. And just about ready to taxi. Taxi lights turned on. Put our strobe up here into auto. Get our electric pump turned off on the hydraulic system. Alright, we can make our way out here to 28. Alright, parking brake off. And we'll get on our way here. This is N3 that we're on right now. This should be H6 up ahead. And look, it's actually different from what's...
6529er, hold position caution to set the Skyhawk on the runway.
I see that. He's like not on the runway. Who am I stopping for exactly? So H9, this is different than what I actually...
Spirit 6529er, continue taxi.
Let's go ahead and put our radios on first officer managed comms.
Roger, Spirit 6529er.
So yeah, the taxi markings are different than what I have on the airport chart. This is an add-on airport from Latin VFR.
Hotel India 722 Alpha Yankee taxi to parking.
I have no doubt that it's an accurate representation.
Hotel India 720 Alpha Yankee taxi to general aviation parking using taxiway hotel 6 Mike November 3 November.
Taxiing to general aviation parking by taxiway hotel 6 Mike November 3 November Cessna 2 Alpha Yankee.
So we're going to make our way down here. To runway 28. Looks like it is going to be the H10, or maybe it's J11. We'll find out when we get a little further down here. So we had, what is that over there? It's like 11, H11. So we'll hold up here, hold short for the runway, get a couple last minute things taken care of. Our strobe light turned on. Takeoff lights turned on. Go ahead and notify the cabin crew. Verify our takeoff config. Oh, our auto brake again needs to be reset, so we'll put that on. I think the difference is I switched back to the fly-by-wire A32NX developmental version, and I was flying the experimental there for a while. I might have to go back to the experimental, but I was becoming concerned with the experimental because it hadn't received any updates recently. Anyway, yeah, I definitely want to switch back to the experimental and see if some of these things that were previously working are put back into place. So we'll do our takeoff config test. Take a look at our transponder here. Go TARA. Everything else is good to go. Yep, everything looks fine. We need to contact air traffic control for clearance.
San Juan Tower Spirit 6529 are ready for ISR departure runway 28.
Spirit 6529er QNH 30.05 wind 113 at 19er. Traffic is Airbus A20N on base. Cleared for takeoff runway 28.
Alright, cleared for takeoff. Let's get on the way here.
Cleared for takeoff runway 28 Spirit 6529er.
all set. Go ahead and hit chrono, and let's go up to 50%. And then do a flex takeoff. Knots. V1, rotate. Positive rate of climb. Gear up.
San Juan departure Spirit 6529er is a
Thrust reduction. Flap retraction. We're going to come around to point back towards our initial waypoint. Get a little more range here on our navigation display.
Spirit 6529er contact San Juan Center on 118.15. 118.15 for Spirit 6529er.
Gauge autopilot.
San Juan Center Spirit 6529er is at 7,800 feet, climbing 9,000 feet. Spirit 6529er, San Juan Center, UNH 30.
There's San Juan Airport down there below.
San Juan departure Spirit 6529er 9,000 feet.
Another aircraft ahead.
San Juan departure UNH 30.05. Continue as planned. Spirit 6529er climb and maintain 15,000 feet. Climb and maintain 15,000 feet. Spirit 6529er.
Alright, climb guidance at 15,000 feet from air traffic control. We need to clean up the aircraft. Flaps are retracted, ground spoilers are disabled.
5 for Spirit 6529er.
Get our takeoff lights here situated, or our taxi lights situated.
Is at 10,000 feet, climbing 15,000 feet.
We're at 10,000 feet, so we'll turn off the landing lights. Now I'll turn off the seatbelts. Departing beautiful San Juan, Puerto Rico. Everything in the green. Conditioning looks good. Cockpit and the cabin. Our pressurization is working normally. Everything's in the green. Next waypoint is Shaka, 6.8 nautical miles away.
Climbed and maintained flight level 230 Spirit 6529er.
Weather looks good outside. So as we depart San Juan International Airport, opportunity for us to talk briefly about the airport itself. Interestingly, the airport construction started in 1947, and when the airport was inaugurated back in May of 1955, it was named the Puerto Rico International Airport. And at that time, the inauguration was presided over by Luis Munoz Marin. And the significance there is he was the first governor of Puerto Rico who was democratically elected by the people. However, the airport didn't receive his name until the governor in 1985 of Puerto Rico had the airport officially renamed. Initially, when the airport was built, it had one runway. It was only 7,800 feet at that time. That was runway 8 and 26. But during the 60s, the runway was extended to 10,000 feet, and by 1974, they had added a second runway, 10 and 28. 28 being the runway that we just departed from. Now, another interesting little fact about San Juan International Airport is that the airport, although owned by the Puerto Rico Ports Authority, is actually privately managed.
Climbed and maintained flight level 330 Spirit 6529er.
So yeah, it's actually managed. Its management has been privatized, and it's now managed by Aerostar Airport Holdings. Now, the significance here, if you're curious, is it's the second U.S. airport, international airport, to be privatized, and as of 2013, it remained the only currently privatized airport in the United States, as a part of the United States. So, interesting little fact there for you. The airport is also known as Isla Verde International Airport. It's located in suburban Carolina, Puerto Rico, which is 3 miles southeast of San Juan. And according to the FAA, by passenger traffic, it handles 4 million passengers per year, and we'll go with those are numbers likely prior to 2020. But at that time, that placed San Juan International Airport the 48th busiest airport for those U.S. airports ever seen by the FAA. So just some interesting tidbits about San Juan International Airport as we depart San Juan for Trinidad and Tobago, the island of Tobago, and A&R Robinson International Airport. And I've got some information about A&R Robinson as well once we get a little closer. But we are going to continue our climb up to 37,000 feet, maybe 39,000 feet, depending on guidance from air traffic control, for our cruise down to Tobago here over the beautiful Caribbean. Not a lot to see out there. Oh, look at that. We got an airport down there. So down there, we should be flying over the British Virgin Islands. Continuing our climb up to 33,000 feet. Did I turn off the lights? Yes, my lights are all situated. Seatbelts are off. So I think this is a good time to break. This is part 1 of our flight from San Juan International Airport to Tobago, the island of Tobago. Appreciate you watching this video. Definitely come back and watch part 2 for our descent and approach into Tobago. Should be interesting. I really would like ATC to be quiet right now, but hey, if you like this video, click the thumbs up. I do appreciate it. And if you'd like to see more of these, click the subscribe. You'll get notifications when I post the descent and approach video into Tobago. For now, I'm Liam Locke. This is Aircraft Adventures, and we will see you for the arrival into Tobago. Thanks. Bye.